But don't worry, because we're gonna have a lot of fun right now. It's another day that we're gonna have someone pretty special right here on stage sharing their story with our company, and he worked for 44 years over here with us, which is incredible. So please put your hands together, make a lot of noise for the incredible, show-stopping, amazing Rob Morton.
Woo. Well, you keep that up, I'm going to wear boots on stage. Jeez, oh, wow. You're really good. Yeah. All right. Good morning. We're moving into this century. Finally. All right. So let's see what happened last time. Went on a little journey over to Paris and then came back. I was working in a attractions role, and in that attractions role, got to work in Future World, went to guest relations, then moved over to the youth education series. I was there before Barb, but you know, this is one of those examples of, remember when I said, whatever you do, be the best there ever was at it. Being a facilitator in the youth education series is an unbelievable, the skill and the talent that it takes to do that is, I never facilitated a class. That's where, you know, if you can't do it, you lead others to do it, or you're the boss, or you teach, you know, all of that nonsense. So I never did it. You did it, and it was an amazing experience to teach people. But the other thing is, what I learned in that time was how much I enjoyed this concept of imparting knowledge or experience to other people. So that became a kind of a little bit of a passion. And I shared that I was a guest speaker for the Disney Institute, and then had an opportunity to move over to the Disney Institute, again, to lead the YES programs. But when that job went away, and I could tell you, I could do an entire session about how many reorganizations I went through and how many times my job went away. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. But here we are. I spent the night at a swimming pool on New Year's Eve. Now we're in the year in 2000. And I'm still working in a financial role at the Disney Institute, and that will become important in just a couple of moments. So for those of you, again, that are here for the first time, here's a little snapshot if you want to take a look at it. And I am pleased to inform you, this is the last time you'll see this slide. You know all this nonsense already, so we're good to go. And so today I wanted to share with you, there's clearly a series of stories. I'm going to start in a very positive way. It's going to require a little teaching that I'll come back to a few times, but then I want to share a very positive story, and then we're gonna dive into what happened on September 11th, from my perspective. Okay, so I wanted to share that because that was a significant moment for everyone that was around at that time. And then I'll tell you how I overcame that fear to step on stage and transitioned from being behind the scenes to being in front of guests. I've got some magical moments that I cannot, well, there's one particularly that is probably my favorite story that I ever get to tell, so you can look forward to that. And then I told you I'd give you a little insight into some key lessons from the Disney Institute and this starting the global travel thing. But we're gonna do a little bit of a quick hit. I'll dive more into that tomorrow, and then I also wanted to share with you what the plan is for next week. On Monday, we're in port. That means I get a day off. And on Tuesday, we're going to do what I call a walk in the park. And we're going to take a walk through the Magic Kingdom, primarily like Main Street, Liberty Square. And I'm going to share some examples of what I told our Disney Institute clients for years and years, some perspective on how Disney thinks about design and how that integrates and supports the experience that our guests have. So I'm going to take you on that little tour. And then next Friday, we're going to shift gears completely, and it's not so much talking about my work experience and my career, but we're going to travel to each of the Disney international destinations, because we've been there fairly recently within the last 2 years, and just want to share what we think is unique. And if those of you who haven't been yet, it may give you some tips and some fun things it may inspire you to go sooner rather than later, and we'll give you some tips and things that are that'll be more for fun. So that'll be more travel-log-ish than what we've been doing so far. And then we do have a Q&A next Friday afternoon if there's any question that I haven't answered yet, or if nobody shows up, then I'll go to the hot tub. All right. So let's talk a little bit of business. And I shared this concept of, or this moment in time that was called performance excellence, where we realized that the way that we had always led our teams or managed our teams needed to evolve a little bit. And no, it needed to evolve a lot. But we shifted to a focus where we knew that great leadership was going to be the key driver of our success. It also helped us to focus how we were going to make decisions, and this is specifically in a parks environment. But what did we need to evaluate and understand to make decisions, and then to evaluate the effectiveness of those business decisions? So we created what we call in business terms a balanced scorecard. As this evolves, it's going to look like a three-legged stool. I tried my best to make it look like a three-legged stool because that's really the way it functions. So when we think about, are we going to do this or that, we always wanted to evaluate the impact that it's going to have on our cast members. Because a lot of businesses, they'll make decisions and they'll do things, oh, we're going to do this for our customer, but then it becomes just a burden for the employees and they can't do it. It gets frustrating, and then it's never going to work as well as you want it to. We need to understand what the impact is to the guest. And is it something that they're going to enjoy? Is it going to make their experience better or worse? Is it going to cost more? Is it going to cost less? What is that impact to the guest experience? And also, we need to understand what it does to our business. Are we going to save money? Are we going to spend money? Is it going to be profitable? Is it not going to be profitable? What are the impacts of that? So let me give you just an example that we're all familiar with. If business is down and you're trying to figure out how to save money, and one of the options that most businesses will consider is layoffs. And hopefully what you see is they'll figure out how to lay off people that aren't necessarily customer facing. They'll do, back on, whatever. So the idea is we're going to have a positive business impact. It's going to be a negative employee impact, but then it'll be neutral for the customer, right? So this is not to suggest that every decision made has a balanced impact, but it should have a balanced consideration. We should always make sure that we are thinking through and considering the impact of our decisions on these three key areas. The beauty of this is it's a simple approach, and not only did it help us make business decisions, it also was the foundation for our most significant recognition programs at Disney, because we wanted individuals to be recognized not because they generated the most revenue or that they were the best at guest service, because if you're great with your guests but you treat your fellow cast members poorly, that doesn't work. So we want to evaluate in all three areas, and in the year 2000, I was honored to receive the first of our Lifetime Achievement Awards, and it was known as Partners in Excellence. And it was designated by the little pin here with Walt and Mickey. It's the partner statue that you see in front of Cinderella Castle, and also I actually got a statue that went along with this. What made me so proud of this is when I received it, I was in the finance role. My guests were other cast members, and I had to balance the business. I had to do that, and then I had other partners throughout the organization that I needed to work with, and through all of that, somebody thought, you know what, Rob demonstrates excellence in those three areas of cast, guest, and business. And this was for years and years, this was the Lifetime Achievement Award. The challenge is we had this at Walt Disney World. Disneyland had a different one, and then you went overseas and they had different ones. So we wanted to consolidate them, and we wanted to refine them somewhat. So the current iteration of this, or the evolution of this, is the Disney Legacy Award. So if you see somebody with the bright blue name tag, that is what we are doing now, and that became a global recognition award that is applied through all around the world. So I'm excited. I received this. I'm on top of the world. This is like a 1% award kind of thing, and I think, oh, this is great. All good from here. That's our Disney Institute campus, and I was working on September 11th, 2001. I'm not going to talk for a long time about this. This is not meant to be a downer at all, but it's meant to kind of show what happens at a park like a place like Walt Disney World when something like this happens. Because I can assure you, you can plan for it, you can talk about it, you can't rehearse it. That morning I'm in my office, Wendy calls me from her office and just said, hey, a plane flew into the World Trade Center, you might want to turn on the TV. I said, okay, so I turned on the TV. I had a TV in my office. That sounds fancy, it's not. I think my office was storage for an extra TV. But we turned it on, and moments later the second plane hit. And we had to mobilize and figure out in our sphere what we're going to do. We didn't know what was happening elsewhere, but we knew that we had two large groups of about 40 or 50 people that were taking our programs that were in a theme park at that moment. And we got the word that the parks were closing, and we had to get these folks back. And not only do we have to get these folks back, now what do we do with them? Because we don't know when we're going to reopen again. And very quickly you're finding out, well, the planes are, the airspaces are being shut down and all of this kind of thing. It was a little side note. Our director was not there, so it was myself and two other leaders that were kind of rallying this. We're trying to figure out how to respond. And but our director was in Washington, D.C. for a meeting with the Federal Aviation Authority. Suffice to say, they didn't have the meeting. But I was familiar with what was probably going on, because way back in the 1980s, I had a project in the Magic Kingdom where I wrote the first directed exit plan for the Magic Kingdom. Meaning for every single location, every attraction, every shop, every restaurant, I wrote out the plan that would happen in the event of an emergency, and that we would have to close the park and evacuate guests out of the park. And the beauty of this is that it was really as simple as ABC. Plan A. You make an announcement, you direct our guests to go to the front of the park, and you're closing the park. So that's plan A. That's also pretty fast. There's an announcement that says, due to circumstances beyond our control, we're forced to close at this time. Please proceed to the exit, follow the directions of our cast members, and then hopefully we have enough information to tell people when they get there. And that's exactly what happened on September 11th. We closed our parks, we exited our parks, and the only information that we were able to give our guests was, your admission for today will still be valid for another visit. Please return to your hotel, turn on the television. That's all we had. Plan B for evacuating a park is if the main exit is blocked for some way. So let's consider if there was a water leak or something, or maybe a building, a crack in a building that makes it unsafe to go under the train station. I don't know, anything like that that would block the main exit. Then plan B is we send people out all the little side gates that we have around the park, and then somehow we get buses and trams to come and pick people up and take them back to the parking lot. And then plan C, and this is unique to the Magic Kingdom, is y'all know there's a tunnel. Yeah, there's tunnels under the Magic Kingdom, the Magic Kingdom Utilidor. is you send guests down all the stairways and into the tunnel. Why would we need to do that? The most likely reason, to my knowledge, we've never done that. The most likely reason would be an approaching tornado. Hurricanes you can plan for, tornadoes you can't. You don't get a lot of notice. So we had 3, A, B, C. That's what. So, but on that day it was A. We actually evacuated the parks in like an hour or so. It worked surprisingly well. But again, for something you can't practice. But we had our guests that were coming back, and we had to arrange for them to stay. We arranged for meals. We arranged for entertainment to come to the resort, and we arranged for no toll. We had toll calls back then, but we removed all of that. They could make all the phone calls that they needed, and because they were going to be stuck with us for days, and so that was really the essence. It was frantic. We were just trying to take care of our guests and making sure that they were taken care of and had everything that they needed, and at the same time we're watching a weather forecast because we had an approaching tropical storm that led to another checklist of things that we had to do, that like starting the next day to get ready for that. Now, this was our office at the time. We were in a trailer. While all of this was happening at the beginning, I was next to the last window down there. This is high-end stuff. We having a trailer with a balcony, that was big time. All right. But something scary did happen, though, because as we were meeting initially, this trailer shook violently because of a low-flying aircraft. And in your mind, I'm not even gonna. You can imagine what our thought was, but in reality, what it was is planes were being diverted all over the place, and we were in a flight path that we were not used to being in, and the planes flew very low, and it shook, and it fortunately that was not the case, but that was our environment and where we were. So we dealt with that. We all came together, and when you look back at it, it was not an accident that the response and what we did worked well, because we had thought about it enough. It's kind of a miracle that it worked as well as it did, because you can't practice it. So now we're worrying about the tropical storm, soon to be Hurricane Aaron, and this is where I pause and give you a personal recommendation. If you have never seen the Broadway musical Come From Away, which is the story of 38 planes that were diverted to Gander, Newfoundland, and it's the story of the passengers, and it's the story of the townspeople who took them in and took care of them for 5 days. And you think, well, it's about September 11th. It's sad. Are there sad parts? Sure. It is most uplifting, positive thing. But a key part of that story is they had to deal with Hurricane Aaron because it went up the coast, and they also had to deal with a plane load of children that were part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation that were on their way to Walt Disney World that stopped there, and they entertained them. And apparently the children didn't complain because they had a lot of fun there with the hospitality of the Canadian residents. So that was that day. And I have colleagues and friends that were there with us, and we always thought every September 11th we kind of chat about it. So, do you remember this? Remember that? So we tell the same story, and I'm sure some of the facts have changed over time. But that's what it was like that day. And I think we opened midday of the next day. The park started reopening again, and then a lot of other things changed that you're experiencing today, and a lot of the security measures and so forth that you experience. Now, around the same time and immediately following this, what do you think was happening to our business in the weeks and months after September 11th? No, it's not. It's okay. Guests weren't coming to the parks, understandably. We had nobody coming to a Disney Institute program. So what do? We take you back to the three-legged stool. We had to evaluate how we were going to approach this so that we can manage our business the best that we can, manage our costs the best that we can, but also be prepared for an optimistic view that our guests would come back, and they did, of course. In this case, though, we were, our guidance from a business perspective is we need to do everything that we can to be good stewards of our business and to save costs. However, the option that you cannot use is layoffs. We're not going to lay anybody off. Can we reduce some hours? Can we do everything else is on the table, but we're not going to lay anybody off. Laying people off would have been the easy thing to do. Not a good, nothing fun about it and nothing positive about it for the people that are affected, but it would have been the easy thing to do. And a lot of organizations, especially airlines and travel businesses, 10,000 people here, 10,000 people here. It was just, a barrage of layoffs. That was the reaction. So it was stressful. We were working very hard to try to figure this out, but this hadn't been announced to anybody. Those of us who were working on the planning knew that was the plan, but it hadn't been announced yet. So in my finance role, I had to play a pretty significant role in what Disney Institute was going to do. And this led to one of the most important leadership lessons that I've ever learned, and I'd like to kind of act that out for you. So one day, whoops, there we go. All right. So one day, again, soon after September 11th, I'm in my office and I'm working. I had an IBM at the time, not a Magnum. All right. And at one point, I get up from my desk and I walked to the pantry. I got a Coke out of the refrigerator. Went back to my desk. What happened next? Yeah, I spilled the Coke on the computer. What happened next? Somebody who I could always count on for seeing the dark side of things. My friend David comes into my office and he shuts the door and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" I looked up at him, I said, "I got a Coke." He goes, "But the look on your face." Everybody had been watching me go to the pantry. Now, considering my role, Rob's the finance guy. Rob's stressed out. That means there must be some really tough things happening in the world of finance. And if Rob's really stressed out, that might mean that they're thinking about laying us off. And if I'm laid off right now, with everything happening in the world, I'm not going to be able to get another job, and I'm not going to be able to pay my expenses and take care of my family, and I could lose my house. Could lose everything I have. They went from employed to homeless in 30 seconds because how I walked to the pantry. And what that taught, and here I am, I just gotten this award telling me, oh, you connect with your guests and your cast and all this stuff so well, but they were used to it and they saw a different Rob. And what I learned from that is that when you are in a leadership role, people are going to watch you and judge you every minute. And it's not fair, but it's the reality. And I learned so much from that from that moment on, every single day that I was in the office, including the last day I was there before I retired, is I would go around and connect to every single person that was there. not the most efficient thing, because there was always work to be done, but I did that every single day and never missed a day doing that when I was in the office, because it was that important, because I realized that people were watching, and yeah, behaviors matter. And so for me, that was one of the most significant leadership lessons that I could have learned. It was an important time. But the good news is that we went for something very positive with the award that I received. We had the horrific events of September 11th and the aftermath that was happening, but something else happened that was as positive as it gets. And our son Stephen was born in October of 2001. And I have another Stephen story to tell you in just a little bit. I'll stop there. And at the same time, remember I had that plan where I was going to go to school part-time and work full-time. And then it took me like 15 years to get my bachelor's degree. But I was done with school. I didn't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, I had gone back to school and I got a master's degree provided by Disney. And if you've never gone to school and worked full-time and had a new baby in the house at the same time, it was a challenge, but such an important moment. Now some of you are asking, okay, Rob, Stephen's born. How long did it take you to take him to Disney? 10 days. 10 days we were at Epcot, and within probably 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks maybe, we're at the Magic Kingdom riding Pirates of the Caribbean. And then to this day, anytime we have friends or family that come in to visit us, if they've never ridden Pirates of the Caribbean before, then they're going to ride it with me before they do anything else. And if I'm not around, they're changing their dates. Okay, not really, but that's the idea. So that was first visit to the Magic Kingdom. So I had shared with you as well, so I have this finance role. One of the reasons I have a finance role is because I was afraid to audition to be a facilitator at the Disney Institute. I could not get over that fear. But my finance role went away. And here's what happened. Our general manager at the time thought, well, this role went away, but there's other finance roles in the organization. I'll get you an interview with finance directors all over the park, and we'll find something else for you. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm good at it, but I hate this. I don't want to do this. And we talked about a few other things. He had an entertainment background. I was, going to have me be a stage manager or something. It's like, none of this sounded fun. So one night, and I don't know what really propelled me to do this. It might have been bourbon. I sent him a note saying, you know what, I've always thought that I would like to be a facilitator at the Disney Institute. Is this an option? Knowing that if he said it, if that was a positive response, that I'd have to audition for it. But instead I got a slightly unexpected and different response from him. Okay, you're a facilitator. I never had to audition. So I think back to that, all of that fear, all of that, I can't do it, I'm afraid to do it. And then when the time came that I finally got the courage to say that I would give it a shot, and then I didn't have to do the one thing that I didn't want to do. And very quickly you get into this another opportunity. So, oh man, I can't believe I get to do this. And from that moment on, the actual doing it wasn't that hard. And once you realize that something happened, like the projector breaks or something like that, nothing bad happens really. And if you can get past all of that, it was so much fun. And I worked with so many talented people that I learned a lot every single day, and it, the confidence grew very, very quickly. Now, one day, I'm going to jump ahead. So now we're 2004. I was helping to deliver we had some team building programs at the time, and I was helping to deliver one of those over at the Contemporary Resort. Now, this was a special day for me. This is my 25th anniversary with the company. And I probably could have gotten away with doing anything that day, but I loved what I was doing, so I'm there. And it was like a half day, like 3 hours in the morning. We wrap up around lunchtime. Well, leading up to this significant day in my career, my leader, this is a story I'm going to tell you, is a magical moment for me, but I also want to give you an example of what great leadership looks like. So I worked for a woman named Sarah, and Sarah had approached me sometime before this and said, Rob, your anniversary is coming up. I know how important this is to you. How would you like to celebrate it? I said, Sarah, thank you for asking. I have thought about it. I'd like to have a parade. I got one. But it looked like this. So here I am. I'm at the Contemporary Resort. We're doing this program that day. Probably have 75 people in the audience, and then we're wrapping up around lunchtime, and then the doors open in the back of the room. And the doors open, and here come another 75 people marching in. People that I worked with, people that I've known for 25 years, my family all showed up. And then our director gets up, and he's got this big booming like broadcaster voice, and this is a very special day for Rob. This is his 25th anniversary, and everybody claps. He gives me my statue, which you can't really tell, but it's a Tinkerbell, which Wendy immediately tried to steal because that's her favorite character. But then the most significant ceremonial part of an anniversary at Disney is not the statue typically, it is the service pin that goes on your name tag. And it's almost like those people who have been in the military and they come to work for Disney, it's a very similar thing. It's about the pin. The pin is a big deal. And so I got the statue, and now I'm thinking Sarah's going to come up and give me my pin. My family's here. We're going to go. We're going to have some lunch. I'm taking the rest of the day off. I'm happy. I got my parade. I'm good. And I'm standing there, and it's getting a little awkward because I don't see Sarah anywhere. You know, it felt like it wasn't that long, but a long time to be, okay, what's going on here? And then I spotted Sarah. Sarah was a half a person above everybody else in those, because there's 150 people gathered around. She's a half a person above everybody else because she's standing on a chair. We'll talk about safety in a few minutes. She's standing on a chair with a video camera. It was my video camera. It wasn't a great video camera because you're going to see that in a second. But she was capturing the moment. And she knew it would have been fun. I've been absolutely happy she'd come up and give me my pen. Everything would have been great. She knew it would mean significantly more to me if this happened. That's our son Stephen presenting me with my 25-year pen. But there's the rest of the story. How did Sarah know to do that? How did Sarah connect to how significant that would be for me? It's because as my leader, she's the person that I had to call many times to change my schedule or to tell her I wouldn't be in because Wendy and I were at another doctor's appointment, having spent 10 years not knowing if we would ever have children. Did it cost Sarah anything to do that? Not a penny. Will I ever forget getting my 25-year pin? Not a chance. That's what great leadership looks like. And when I think back to how just that one moment, so simple. And I've shared that so many times. It was hard for a long time. I couldn't share it without tearing up, but it was so wonderful. And I got to tell you, 5 years later, when I got my 30th award, that wasn't bad either. And then we had the other one, and somebody had asked me who my favorite Disney character is, and it's Jiminy Cricket, because Jiminy Cricket represents the conscience. And represents trying to do your best to do what's right and to influence and help others do the same thing. All right, that's a good. All right. So now I'm part of the Disney. So what is this thing called the Disney Institute? Let's do a little. Now you're here for some business training. So as I had mentioned, the Disney Institute exists. It originated from phone calls after the book In Search of Excellence was written, and that TV special. I'm telling you, gotta watch that. And so we are 100% externally focused. We don't do any cast member training. Our goal is to share best practices and lessons learned with other organizations, not only to share it, but also in many cases to act as when I was there, we were told never to use the word consulting, but I'm retired now. We were consultants. All right. But we were consult with organizations and advise them on, all right, in your business, and I worked with airlines, automotive companies, healthcare, hospital systems, professional sports organizations, sports teams. And so again, they're different, especially like healthcare, completely different than Disney, but the concepts that we would share would translate. And the reason that they would translate and could be adapted, it's not doing what Disney does, it's processing how Disney thinks and then applying it to your own business. It was simple. And anytime I'd work with somebody, I'd put a quote up on a flip chart, and the quote was, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." And I attribute it to Leonardo da Vinci. Other people attribute it to somebody like Steve Jobs, who I think stole it from Leonardo da Vinci. But that's okay. Anyway, but this idea of simplicity, and it's wonderful that it's not. There's a difference between things that are simple and the things that are easy. The concept of losing weight in theory is simple, because it's like, well, if you eat less and exercise more, you did okay. Is it easy to do? Not a chance. You still have to work very hard at it. So, but what I'm going to share with you is very simple. Going back to performance excellence and the role of leaders, this is how we took the decisions that we made using that balanced scorecard of cast, guest, and business. Now, how do you execute it? How do you deliver upon it every single day? You had to have great leaders demonstrating positive behaviors. You needed to have what we called cast excellence, and engaged cast members that were committed to exceeding expectations and doing so consistently, that had a heart and a desire to do it. They weren't doing it because they had to, they did it because they wanted to. Significantly different things. Guest satisfaction, that we need to be driving toward this concept of we need to make our guests happy. How do you make guests happy? You give them a little bit more than what they expect. If you can exceed expectations this much, then you can have very high levels of satisfaction. It's not about going out and creating a big wow all the time. Now they're awake. Okay. Okay. Wows are fun. The big wows, those moments are great. They're not sustainable on a daily basis, but you can go in and just do a little bit more. I had a friend of mine named Dennis. He used to talk about this noise, the sound that people make when their expectations are exceeded just a little bit, and it goes like this. Oh, that's it. Oh, and where you have to move your head just a little bit, just go. Oh, but if you can have people all day long walking away from an interaction, they go, oh, you win. It's cumulative and it builds, and that's really the idea of what drives that. And then we needed to drive the business results, but you had to do it in this order. Because if you can drive this, and the key measure that we would always look at for guest satisfaction, and we'd always say, you know, rate your satisfaction, that's a measure, but the most important measure is what your intent to return and what your intent to recommend. Small changes in that can correlate. It's a leading indicator of future business, and it's huge, significant increases in visitation, increases in revenue, and so forth. So the Disney Institute around these focuses on 3 key areas, and these won't surprise you. Leadership excellence. What can we share about our journey providing leadership to our cast members? A broader topic of employee engagement, but this is the cast excellence piece. And when we talk about engaging employees, we're talking about how do you hire them? How do you hire the right people? How do you train the right people? How do you reinforce key concepts through communication? And how do you care and recognize employees? So those areas, and we can help. We help the organizations in all 3 of those. And then the quality service that you're providing to whomever you're, is it a customer, is it a patient, is it a guest, whatever, whomever it is that you're serving, do you have the right structure in place to do that? So we're going to talk about, from a quality service perspective, what is this simple structure that Disney uses that is remarkably transferable across many different organizations. So, first of all is this idea of a common purpose. And if you've read books about Disney, and this probably won't be a surprise to you, but what is it that you can use to align every single individual, regardless of how long they've worked there, regardless of their position, that binds everybody? And at Disney, this idea is, or the common purpose is, we create happiness by providing the finest in entertainment for people of all ages everywhere. And you know, when you talk about that, oh, okay, so you're just nice to everybody. No. For people of all ages everywhere, that's a higher bar, because it's not just, you know, people of a certain demographic. It's everybody all the time. That's what we should be focused on. And it doesn't matter. When I was in finance, you're saying, hey Rob, how did you make people happy in finance? I was responsive to their emails and their phone calls. I provided them information so they could be confident in the decisions that they were making in a timely manner. And I worked very hard to be a good partner, and I worked very hard to understand the guests that they were serving. And again, it's not necessarily happiness, but happiness in contentment and being calm and confident about the decisions that you're making. Now, so part 1 of the structure, a common purpose that applies to every single person. Now, if we just went out and said, go make everybody happy, and stopped there, it could manifest itself in some interesting ways. So now we got to give people some structure on how to do that. And many of you may have heard of our service standards, now known as for many years it was the 4 keys, now it's the 5 keys. And safety being paramount, number 1, non-negotiable. Safety of our guests, safety of our cast, safety of our property. The courtesy, how we treat people. And the experience, it's the human interaction element of a service experience. Is that positive? The show, we're in show business. And the show can be anything from the rides and shows, the attractions and things, and how they work, to how clean the streets are, to the costumes that cast members wear. All of those elements are a part of the show. The efficiency, and this is not about saving money per se as much as it is about reducing hassles and inconveniences, which is important and can lead to that. Minimizing wait times in the experience that you have. And then the 5th one that was added a few years ago is this, the importance of inclusive, being inclusive, and it's really about inclusive thinking. And I've processed this in a way where the first 4 are operational. So if we call them the keys, imagine keys on a key ring. And the keys are safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency, you know, in that order. inclusion is the key ring. Because every single one of those is, are we being inclusive in the decisions that we're making as it relates to ensuring a safe experience, as it relates to being courteous, as it relates to putting on a good show, and so forth. So, area number one in the structure, a common purpose. Number two is providing a standards or expectations that can be used to make decisions to deliver upon the common purpose. Now, when we work with other companies, their purpose is going to be different, their standards are going to be different, but the structure is the same. And it is simple, and it can be replicated, it can be used from everybody in the organization all day, every day. Now, the third is what we refer to as observable behaviors. And I'm going to need your help on this one just a moment. Now, first of all, we're going to talk behaviors generally aligned with courtesy. Courtesy is not a behavior. Because the challenge is, with courtesy, you really need to think about, well, what does it look like? And so we can agree that there are certain behaviors that would demonstrate courtesy. So here's what I need you to do. Turn to the person next to you. I would like for you to make eye contact, but do not smile. Don't do it. But make eye contact with your neighbor. Don't smile. We call that staring. All right, now, okay, one more time. I want to see it up here. I want to see the reflection of your teeth. I want everybody to smile a big smile, but don't you dare look at anybody else. All right, that's just weird. This is an example. What are the observable behaviors? You know, when we say, you know, and this could also include things like body language and other elements, but we have to be very, very specific in what does it look like. But in that case, those are behaviors that have to go together. So one of the expected behaviors at Disney is make eye contact and smile in one line, because if you don't do both, you saw what happens. All right. So those are three areas. This idea of a common purpose, standards to make decisions, and observable positive behaviors. This is an example of the structure and the best practices that we would share with other organizations. We would work with them to adapt it to their business, and in many cases we would help in the training of that across their entire organization, which really led to us needing to get beyond the berm, meaning outside the perimeter of Walt Disney World, because for years and years and years, anybody that wanted to take a course or learn from the Disney Institute had to come to Walt Disney World. Now that made pretty good sense for us, because when you came there, then you needed a hotel room, and you needed to eat, and you needed park tickets, and when you were there, you left your family at home, you had to buy stuff to take back to them. Trust me, our business, we made a lot more money on that stuff than we ever did people paying tuition to come to the Disney Institute. But our clients kept asking us over and over again, can you come to us, can you come to us? And no. All right. Finally, in the mid-2000s, we started saying, you know what, we'll come to you. If you come to us for something, then we'll come to you for something. It kind of was like that. When we cracked that open just a little bit, it exploded. The demand, because there's so many organizations who couldn't come to Walt Disney World, they couldn't bring their teams to Walt Disney World, but if they brought us to them, we could impact so many more people, and that's really what we did. So the global travel started in the mid-2000s, and we started, again, expanding, going to different locations around the world. I'm going to share some of those in just a moment. Going and working with our other even Disneyland, we had to go to and start working with them. So how can we bring Disney Institute to Disneyland? You know, it's also in the U.S., it's just on a different coast. But this might surprise you. They do things differently at Disneyland. Still do. First trip to Tokyo, I thought I'd share this one, a little precursor, because I'll be talking more about a little bit about Tokyo tomorrow, and then more next week when we do the travelogue section. But this is my friend Chris, and he and I are at Tokyo Disneyland for the first time, and we started a game. and we still play this game. Even Wendy and I kind of play this game when we're there. It's the 100 yen bet. 100 yen bet is like a dollar. It was essentially $1 at the time, a little more than $1. But the idea was, if you can find a burned out light bulb, you are owed a 100 yen coin. If you can find a piece of trash on the ground, you will never exchange the coin. That's how good it is. We learned about that. That was one of the first ahas of there's a lot more out there that we can talk about that is amazing. We need to get beyond the berm of Walt Disney World. So some travel highlights early on. I tried to pick things that you'll recognize. So Australia, 2005, went to Australia 3 times. Went here for the first time, and that first visit was absolutely magical. And there's this walkway that goes from the hotels to the park, and they played beautiful Chinese music at the time. And here we are, we're on the South China Sea. I'm walking along, I'm hearing this. I felt like I was completely in a different world. If you go today, it's Disney music. I don't know why, but anyway, it was first time there. And during this time, because this was exploding, I got to become a pioneer. Okay, this is the guy that was afraid to audition. But I was the first one to go to many places to represent Disney Institute, to deliver our content, to work with our clients. And I'm going to have to refer to a list here because there's a few, but mainland China. I got the biggest kick out of this because we were warned about the iron, the blocking of internet, and you can't use social media and anything. I posted from my BlackBerry on Facebook right after this picture was taken. I'm going, oh well, you can use your phone to do that. You just can't use your computer. So some of the others where so it was Australia, New Zealand, mainland China, Greece, Austria, Spain, Estonia, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong, mainland, and then Singapore. My first trip to Singapore was in 2005, 2006. It exploded, and all of us were all of a sudden going all over the place because there was a demand and there was an interest in how Disney thinks about their business. And this opened up an opportunity, but also a love of travel that I never knew that I had. And I'm really fortunate that this caught on from that first recruiting trip all the way up until now, because I don't know, I think it'd been a deal breaker for Wendy if I didn't. This is a picture I just can't resist. So I was in New Zealand and had my first selfie. Do you recognize who that is? Lucy Lawless, Xena the Warrior Princess. She's from New Zealand. We were there, and we both participated in a charity event, and she took that picture, and it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. And we spent the whole time talking about she married an American from Michigan, so we were talking about like places she traveled in the U.S. and so forth. But it was lovely. So we're going to all these places. We're traveling around the world. Some of you are probably thinking now, but hey, Rob, they don't speak English. How many languages do I speak? I barely speak English. But I wanted to just take a moment here to say that this idea of relying on the people who are best at what they do. So I started working with some of the most talented professionals, skilled professionals, and those are language interpreters. And so in many cases we had to. In some cases we could still speak English, and especially at executive levels, English is pretty good. But I worked with a lot of interpreters. But I wanted to give you an example of what an amazing interpreter can do. Because there's 2 types of interpretation. There is consecutive interpretation, which means I speak, they speak. I speak, they speak. An hour presentation is a 2-hour presentation. Or there's simultaneous interpretation. I'm talking and then they've got headsets on and they're hearing it real time. And I worked with a team, I remember in Japan, and we got to, when you start and get a relationship with interpreters, magic happens. And I will tell you, Jungle Cruise humor doesn't translate very well. So what they started to do was say something to the effect of, Rob just told a joke. Laugh now. But if you ever encounter somebody who is an interpreter, and that absolutely includes sign language interpretation that you'll see at Disney and on the ship, they are the masters of their craft, and give them a high five and say thank you for what they're doing. I shared with you that I had been what was classified as cheap talent before. I was in that Disney lookbook, I was in the guide map, and while I was at the Disney Institute, they flew me out to Phoenix so I could be in this full-page ad for Disney Institute. This was in Fortune magazine, and yeah, the D-Think was not really on the little cards, that's all Photoshop, but I had to be out there at like 4 o'clock in the morning because we had done work with Alaska Airlines, and so I had to stand like this for 3 hours to do that. But again, all they had to do was pay my travel. But that was another trip. And you know, this travel was a challenge because I was gone a lot. And we were very fortunate. Wendy's parents lived a block away from us. We had the support system, we had everything, and Wendy and I were aligned that this is to our advantage, we're doing this, but that's not to say that it was easy by any means. I was gone a lot. And in our son Steven's room, we have this map of the world on the wall, and every time I'd be getting ready to go on a trip, I would sit down and I'd take the boys in there and I'd map out, okay, I'm going to go, here's the flight that I'm taking, and here's where I'm going here, 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 and this is how I'm going to come home, and this is when I'll be home, and we'd have this conversation every time. And they learned a lot about geography during that. And one time, here, right at the end of the 2000s, I'm on a trip, and Wendy is in there with our son Brian, and she's doing what good moms do, and she's teaching, and she's doing, where does Uncle Kelly live? Point there. Where does cousin Stacy live? And they're pointing to, you know, and primarily. Then Brian asked a very significant question. Something had to change. Next time, we're going to move to Singapore. I'll tell you the story of how that happened and the experiences there. I look forward to it. It's going to look like this. I wanted to share, Hong Kong Disneyland became my home park for almost 5 years. And so we talk about applying the lessons learned from Paris. We're going to share some travel highlights because the Disney Adventure is going to Singapore, and just because it doesn't have any ports of call doesn't mean you can't go to other places if you go there. And I just talked to somebody earlier that's already booked on the Disney Adventure, so we're going to talk about Singapore, but there's lots more to do, so we'll give you some highlights. This concept of culture shock, and when we returned home, reverse culture shock. Going there was easy. Coming home was hard. And if you're curious a little bit about what Disney retirement looks like, I'll give you a little snapshot into what this retiree's life is like now that I'm retired. So thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow, 11 o'clock.